Okay, we'll call the October 13th Redistricting Board to order. Beth, will you call roll?
Brad?
Here.
Roger?
Here.
Karen?
Here.
Bruce?
Here.
We have a quorum, we will continue. And first things first, the minutes, and as I understand it, there may be a correction required.
Yeah. There's actually two different corrections. On section 3, where it says example of redistricting maps, one of the statements is that some of the sample maps were thrown out and new ones will be submitted at the next meeting. I don't think that there was any discussion about throwing out. I think it's supposed to be maps were handed out, really.
Why don't I just get rid of that whole sentence, because
Okay.
it really doesn't have to be in there.
Okay.
That's okay?
Okay. And then the other change I would suggest is that that sentence that talks about discussion items, it says a complete overhaul of the districts was also done, and it makes it sound like that's what we did at the meeting. So I would suggest that she add something about that one of the options was to,
What if I put on one of the map options?
yep, that'd be fine.
Where's this at?
Okay, so we're looking for a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
I make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Beth, roll call vote.
Bruce?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Gosh. Roger?
Yes.
Brad?
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to discussion items, clarification regarding public hearing requirement and redistricting timeline.
So during the last meeting, there was a little bit of confusion, mostly my fault, in terms of the public hearing and what the final plan meant. So I met with Karen. Ryan, you want to put the WebEx up? So I met with Karen to go back over it just to make sure we were all on the same page. And so the dates do remain the same, but the note about public hearing is that technically the way it's worded is it's a notice of a public hearing for alternative plans, plural. So there, per Karen's interpretation, there should actually be at least 2 plans that are provided during that public hearing. So it doesn't have to be your final plan in the public hearing.
Can you send me a copy of that?
Yes.
That would be correct, but it can't be a final plan. It's got to be at least 2, so.
Right. Yeah, at least 2 plans would have to be presented. And then that public hearing does need to happen at least still that 30 days prior to the end of the year. So you do have until the end of the year to submit that final plan, but your public hearing has to be held at least 30 days prior to that. And just a reminder that the auditor's office also has to have their precincts done by the end of the year. So just another caution of maybe not waiting till the last minute.
Okay.
Any questions on that?
Do we have to have a motion to change the time?
No, because the timeline is set by Century Code. This was just clarifying what they actually had to have prepared prior to the public hearing. Because I think the other thing that had come up that I'd caused confusion with on the public hearing was that of how much time you actually had to change it afterwards.
Okay. Well, thank you for the clarification. When you do something once every 10 years, it's fair to have some adjustments along the way. Okay, presentation of option G. Karen?
Yep, thank you. All right, about a week or so, Lindsay and I got together and we worked on possibly another option G. And the difference between option G and the other options that we have on the maps is that because the old city airport property, they're planning on some sort of a master plan, we tried to rearrange the district so that that master plan area, which encompasses like 3 separate parcels, is in one district only, rather than split up between districts. That was one of the major changes. And then the other change too is that rather than having, because before, or I think even now, all the districts have some part of the inner city of Williston limits, and it just seemed to me that that didn't really make a whole lot of sense, that it just, so what we did was for district number 5, we moved that outside of the inner city limits and moved it on the east side of the city limits. So even though it encompasses that part that's on the east side of the city limits, it doesn't encompass the inner part of it, really.
Well, the east side city limit part on this plan is the same as it currently is. But to gain the population that District 5 needed, it doesn't have to come into city limits at all. It just comes further south, picking up more of Tyrone and then that growth in the northern part of Missouri Ridge.
Okay.
What's the growth of Missouri Ridge? Is that little thing that comes down, the little dew flicker there?
So that's following Highway 85.
But that's going to be a little bit difficult because in that area there, we're going to have extra ballots because you're going to have to vote for 2 commissioners.
But you're also going to have to vote for 2 legislative districts because that's also the legislative boundary, is the Highway 85.
And we cannot have a precinct that has more than 1 legislative district in it, correct, Karen?
Yep.
So that won't work.
Why wouldn't you just create 2 precincts?
Well, that's something that will have to be done then, if this is the option that's chosen.
So the difference, Ryan, if you can put on the current commission districts really quick.
No, I'm talking legislative districts.
Okay, but I'm just showing you what option G does. So currently, Missouri Ridge and Tyrone are already in 2 different commission districts, but it's a north-south split. And Ryan, if you zoom out a little bit, District 5 and District 1 kind of they currently are following Highway 85. So this plan shores up that boundary with township boundaries so that the entirety of Tyrone and then the 2 above it are all full. And then Missouri Ridge, instead of having just those 3 sections on the northeast corner, have the whole northern half. So it's not much different than how it currently is. Well, I mean, it is, but in terms of precincts and whatnot, it's still 2 commission districts in the same township.
But I guess, what does that little dip represent?
That's Highway 80, that's the 85 bypass. So it's following that as a boundary. And that's the same boundary that the northern boundary of new legislative district 23 is.
One of the other things that we tried to do is also to make sure we try and stay as close as to keeping to not only the township boundary lines, but also the township section lines. And so we were trying to really adjust, some of the populations and some of the lines that, so that it kind of follows that. Because one of the requirements of state law is to try and follow township lines as closely as possible, really. So, yeah. Yep, I think that was really about it.
And the current map, District 5 is splitting townships, is that right?
Yes, because the current districts are following Highway 5 completely north instead of the township lines. And then Ryan, if you want to switch to the tool to just show the chart.
Just a question.
Oh, yeah.
Is the north edge of the city boundary right at the Love's Truck Stop? Is that road the boundary with the top of the yellow line?
Yes.
Okay.
Ryan, you want to zoom all the way in?
I thought it was, but I mean.
Yeah, it is.
You seem to have quite a bit of District 1 over here into a new area than it was before by doing this. Compared to on F or even, the others, most of the others. That's the only thing. It seems like you're moving quite a few people into a different district than compared to what they are right now.
Well, in some respects, we have to move a big chunk of people because right now, District 1 is way over the average population, really.
Yeah.
So, because they've got like about 14,000 and they're only allowed to have 8,100. So we had, a big chunk of people are going to have to move to another district, so.
The current District 1 is that whole northern arm of the city of Williston. We're actually reducing the amount of, option G reduces the amount of area of District 1 within the city of Williston. And remember, geography doesn't necessarily translate to population as well. But because the hard part about the middle of the city of Williston, at the south part of that arm, is that's where the old airport is with the master plan for development, and wanting to try to keep that whole area together so we don't split what we are sure is going to be a community between two different districts. So on the paper maps, the first map is the current districts. So you'll see it's actually reducing it.
And so what you're doing here is making Commissioner District 3 bigger.
Yes, because as of right now, those census blocks that are covering the old airport, I think, are zeros, and there's one that has 2 people in them. And so with this plan, the district as a whole is still within that plus minus 10%, but it's under by a little over 400 people. So it would actually allow for that growth. So we wouldn't totally throw it out of proportion. Because kind of based on the master plan, it's somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 housing units, and there's single family and multifamily that development would be anticipated. So it would allow for that growth.
And is there a little bit of purple at the bottom of Commissioner District 4? Is there that little bit of purple before you go across the bridge? Right there.
Yeah, so the census blocks get a little funky along the river. Most of them are 0. Yep, so that's currently in District 5, currently already extends there.
See, this one here is the ecology park. We have nothing there. We don't even count that as, that's quote 74A, but we never had a ballot for it because
Beth, you got to talk into your mic, please.
what?
Would you use your microphone, please? Ryan, can you switch to the tool, please? Because that'll be able to show the block numbers a little bit easier. Yeah. So, one of the things as far as I remember, that eastern or the western edge of District 5 doesn't really change from what it is today. And there are little weird things that poke up because they're census blocks. And so if a census block, my understanding is that if a census block has a population in it, we can't split it because you don't know where in that population block, where that census block the population is. But if there is a 0 block, for purposes of the board establishing district boundaries, you would be able to shore that up. So there's a couple of little unique parts of the districts that we would be able to tighten up just based on the population. Or based on where the
So
census
how many
blocks are.
people are in this top block of the city where it's going into the blue apparently? Is there a lot of people there or what?
Yep, so Ryan, if you want to zoom out just a little bit. So the northern part of the District 1 with that blue area, it does have quite a few different communities of
Within the city,
over 100 people, yes.
part of,
Ryan, can you turn the city limits on, please?
put the city boundary in. Yeah.
But where? There it is. Oh,
Wow.
Yeah, the blue purple boundary is where the city limit boundary is at the top part. But Ryan, if you want to zoom out just a little bit. So there are quite a few different communities. Well, right. So right to the left. So in the northern part, there's that. So remember, census blocks are made by the Census Bureau, and they follow semi-natural boundaries or roads. So that kind of grid of roads has about 128 people. Yep.
And is that a census block?
Each little rectangle is a census block. So this would essentially look to me like a semi-developed development where those northern roads maybe don't have houses on them yet. And then obviously people are living on the perimeter roads because the block surrounding it has 128 people. Just the directly south of the bypass. Because I guess, Ryan, if you want to switch back to the web map, we can look at the...
Is that the one before you go into, where Deanna Senior lives? Luke and Bill?
not looking better. Well,
No, it's before you get to Luke and Bill's.
Bendy is like where Karen Street is, yeah.
If it helps, right here's that new school that was.
That's in the south half of Missouri Ridge? Or not? Are these township lines, these big black lines, or what are?
The big black lines are township lines. So,
Township's bigger than that, though. Must be
I think you're looking at part of some of the
something else.
the division of this.
yeah, there's a black line where the 4 screens are.
The screen, yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
that's on the screen.
Yeah. Okay, there we go.
Okay, those other lines. Too many lines.
I know. If you want to stand in front of one of the other ones, we can get you a wireless mic too if you want to. We can get you a wireless mic if you want to come look at one of these posters. Okay.
So you're saying that nobody lives in that subdivision, but 128 people live in that census grid?
No. Yeah, actually, Ryan, if you want to stay on the, let's just stay on the census information map and then turn on population by block 2020 and just change the transparency of it. Because then we can see the. Yeah. So then if you zoom back in on that one. So there's 128 people that live around it. So that's like all of the houses that are perpendicular to 85 would be in that one big block around it. And then all of the individual streets, those rectangles are their own.
Looks like a man camp area, though. More so than anything.
it looks like that when you're in there, too.
Bite your tongue, Roger.
Yeah, so Beth, you can see the houses on the perimeter of the community are what's in that one big block, and then the individual census blocks have the houses that have been built. And then, so then there's, obviously, those next 3 streets to the north that don't have any houses yet. Or they might have a couple based on when this image was produced, but.
Got it. I know where we're at now.
Yep.
And so could you just run us through the premise behind your thought process when developing option G? Why you think that this is it a better option than other options in your mind because of certain aspects?
Well, like I said, I guess I thought that in my mind, it was better to try and keep, try to keep the line, the boundary lines of each district as close to possible as section lines for townships or the township boundary lines. And then another thing, like a big thing, was to make sure that the city airport parcels were all within one district, and then just to have not have all of the commission districts representing people within the city, really, at least the inner part of the city. So, I mean, is it better than the other ones? No, other than the big difference to me really is that it keeps the old city airport property within one district, really.
And it shores up the northern township boundaries as well, like some of the other ones do. But this was kind of, I think, the only one of the other options that we previously presented. This is the one that keeps to a minimum the amount that District 5 would come into the city of Williston. It keeps the same as previously. And I mean, from a proportion standpoint, it's like 3.6 commission districts should be within the city of Williston based on population. So this is relatively close.
I guess one of the things I thought about in not only coming up with this, but looking at the other options was that, a couple of options go down towards Trenton. One of the option goes towards Judson Township to the west. Was there another one that also went towards Judson Township or up north or?
Yeah, so so the option A's went down south all the way to Trenton. B went all the way for Judson Township as opposed to going down to Trenton, so all the way west and keeping in line with those. Option E mostly focuses on redistricting within the city limits, but actually really shrinks District 2 because it extends further north, taking away from 3 and 4. And then option E. Yeah. And then option F was kind of weird too. And actually, I think E and F, that was before we really realized and looked into the master plan and realized that it really shouldn't be split.
You're talking about,
The
You mean
old
the-
airport.
the airport.
Yeah. E and F do not keep the old airport property all intact. And based on the master plan, it extends all the way to the end of the old runway and kind of encompasses the municipal golf course as well. And residential areas were planned for that end as well. And then
Option E and F also split townships.
they do,
Yeah.
yes. Yep. Because the other hard part about the airport too, and even just trying to keep it together, the population growth really happened around that area, and it's really dense. So one little move north, actually, it could add almost 900 people to your district, and considering 819 is our plus minus, it's not very flexible. And again, the census blocks are the smallest demographic area that we're provided data based on. There are block groups and tracks, but in a county that's as dense but also as rural as ours, they really aren't to our advantage in terms of coming up with district lines within the city, unfortunately.
Okay, and so when I look at all the options, option G is the only one that doesn't, there's still some splitting a township, one township, but the rest of them split multiple townships. So this is probably the least split up from a township perspective, if that's important.
And some of the other options too, if you liked other aspects of it, we can definitely look at cleaning up some of the township lines, because really up north, you're probably not gaining a whole lot of population. That's kind of the hard part. Like, that's the trade-off too with District 5. District 5, no matter what, essentially needs a little, like around 2,000 people. And either you're going to get it by going really, really, really far east and really far south, or you're going to get it by picking up or just going south into that Missouri Ridge area, or by going into the city of Williston. But essentially, Tyrone and Missouri Ridge is really what's giving District 5 its balancing population.
I guess I just, that little, that comes down. I mean, is there people that live there in that little?
5 people live in that census block. But again, it's all at least still within Missouri Ridge. It's just that little dip. And then I think we tried to come further south, but it gets really hard because of how the blocks are cut up and because how they follow other roads. But then you're also crossing legislative districts, and that would then kind of cause, I mean, no matter what, we did the best we could within the middle of the city of Williston based on the proposed legislative districts, but really just from what we have to do with 5 districts, this was a nice clean line, but there's still going to be some intricacies in the middle.
So I have a question here with, you need more people in District 5. Is that kind of the goal of this reaching out into the west there?
Well, I mean, no matter what the plan is, District 5 needs more people.
Needs more people?
Yeah. Because remember, District 1 has to give up 6,000 people, and those 6,000 people need to go to the other 4 districts.
I'm kind of partial toward option F myself, but it splits and does put part of District 5 into the northern part of the city, which I guess is one of the goals is to try to avoid, but I don't know if there's very many people in that part of District 5 or not that's within the city and in option F.
So the part of District 5 that is in option F is the area near Eagle Ridge Golf Course and those couple of communities surrounding there. So there's quite a few.
The Meadows subdivision and those?
Yes, yep. Yeah. And then F we would have to do.
Well, that's why you need so much more territory in option G then, is because you're giving up those people that would have been there, so.
Right.
And now they're in District 1, the way I read it.
Correct, yes. So yeah, that would actually be changing their district. So the boundary that's used in that case is the highway again instead of a township line.
And so if we don't foresee changing that precinct that has the little dew flicker coming down like that, I have a real issue with that little dew flicker following 85 there, the bypass. As long as we keep that in the same voting precinct, that won't be such a difficult thing to do. Because if we split up,
Does it make you sad because it's curved?
I just don't like odd things like that. It's, because everything else is straight lines or it's within the city limits, like on F, everything, that is odd is half of a thing that's split up by Highway 85. And then the other ones are within subdivisions or within the city of Williston. And so those are easy to do.
There's a big highway that crosses. It's pretty easy to identify that I'm either on the north side of Highway 85 or the bypass, or I'm on the south side or east and west side. I mean, it's pretty obvious when a poll worker asks when they come in, what side of the road do you live on?
Hey, Beth, most of us drive on the road.
They go pretty much by the address, though, correct? I mean,
We go by
Everything is-
addresses,
yeah.
not, you know.
but don't sometimes.
Steve, that was one of the things that we looked at the redistricting committee at the state level was using major roadways as boundaries. So you could say to people, do you live on the west side of the new bypass or do you live on the east side of the new bypass? And they would know where they're supposed to be. So I get what Beth is saying. It's not very straight looking, but we used every major impediment boundary that we could, which is typically going to be major highways whenever we could.
That makes total sense. I'm warming up to it better.
We just got to drag her along, kicking and screaming.
Thank you for getting out of the park, Brad.
I think one of the other things that I was thinking of when we were working on option G is to try and keep as many straight lines as possible, really, because one of the other goals of the redistrict plan is what they're supposed to be regular and compact, and to me, that's trying to keep things sort of straight lines as possible, really. You know, and obviously even this option G, we'd have to do a little bit of cleanup and stuff, you know, but it's like, I don't necessarily like that little doohickey thing either, but it's like, we had to work with what we had, really, especially based on the census blocks.
So at this point, are there any options that you do want to throw out that we can just take off the table, or not quite
well,
there yet?
are all these options, are the populations workable in all of them, or?
Yes, so all the options are within the plus minus 10% threshold.
It just seems like the green district, which Steve's district, I think, but is so different in so many options that how can it have the right population in all of them?
Population density is an odd thing.
Yeah, but
Steve, what is your like as far as your district? You know, and then that's the ones that we can eliminate, because those are basically the ones that we would be able to eliminate is what Steve thinks would be the best for his district, you know, for district, no?
I don't want to influence anybody on anything
no.
with regards to me personally. That would.
but F and G are both quite close to what that current district is,
I would agree
you know.
with that statement, and I guess I've been trying to look at it from the point of I had not seen option G until tonight. I mean, this is the first time I've seen it, so this was what was making it poignant for me was Karen, I believe you were trying to say that we should try as best we can to follow township lines and respect those boundaries. And this seems to kind of do that until you get into the city. Obviously, that's where things start to break down. And then I think also keeping District 3 tidy with the airport and the old existing airport and a lot of future potential for growth, that made sense to me. But I mean, outside of that, I don't want to influence anything with regards to my district because I think that's for you all to weigh in on.
I have a suggestion. Option E, that has townships that are split. Tyrone, Missouri Ridge, and Williston Township is split there. So I think that option, if we're trying to follow township lines, option E probably, in my opinion, should probably go. On an election perspective, option A, A2, and B, I'm not liking the way that how Commission District Number 2 goes, and it's just so, and it's gonna entail, you know, two different two different precincts as we have them right now. Because Judson and Trenton are, and Williston. And Trenton is a different precinct than Judson and Williston, right, currently. And so that would be something, unless you're gonna go ahead and redo the precincts and have those precincts. The same with option B, because, well, B would be okay to leave it, but then we still have that, as I said, the breakup in township lines. So A, A2, B, and E are all township line breaks.
An alternative to B and G was something we could look at. Could be if you kept District 2 as it is on option B, but did the G trade-off for District 5 and pulling it out of that northern part of the city of Williston and doing Tyrone and the northern part of Missouri Ridge could be an alternative. Actually,
Right.
we could, you want to try
Where
that?
would you put them? Where would,
So how G has so instead of District 5 extending into the northern part of the city of Williston, it would pick up the northern part of Missouri Ridge and all of Tyrone, like in option G.
oh, you mean District 5 would take that up in B?
Yep. And then,
Why would you need to add to it there, though? Or,
oh, because Beth was commenting in terms of not following township lines.
oh,
So it could, a trade-off could perhaps happen in that northern part. Ryan, do you want to see what that does? Yeah, I'd open B. And then just don't save over it.
But then option B still separates out the city, the old airport though too. So.
Yep, and we'd have to fix probably that middle part as well. So,
Right, so that would be all the same.
right. I mean, because, we have the ability to do this live, so we could just quickly do this, and then if it squirrels a little bit, we can take it as a side note for next time.
So where are you saying?
I don't like that, expanding District 2 out to the west as much as those three different options have it. So, I guess that's the way I feel about it. But
You say you don't want District 2 going into the Judson? Is that what
Yeah.
you mean? Okay.
Yeah, I think District 2 should end at the township line there, or as close to it as it's possible. It'd be better if it was right at the township line, wouldn't it? Yeah,
Yeah,
that'd be just 2 miles west, or 1 mile west of the 4 mile, correct? Right, straight south of the.
right, 141st, I think, is the dividing line.
Yeah,
And I think that would be a good option too, is if you just end there.
and that's where it is now, too. It's right on that line, so.
Right.
And that,
I don't, the less we change, the better, as far as for people having their commissioner.
and that essentially, then that kind of just brings us back to G, where the western boundary of District 2 is maintained, and it just extends a little bit further north, picking up that one neighborhood.
One of our
So-
main things is to keep the airport, the old airport. That's why we have those three up there. So that's one of our main goals, is to keep that old airport together into one district.
that's not necessarily our main goal. That was one of my main goals in Lindsay and I come up with option G. That doesn't have to be our main goal. I'm just saying that that was something I thought was important, really, especially since the city had a master plan for that area.
Is there any way that we can overlay the legislative districts on this yet, or no?
We have them in the tool, we just don't have them on the census, on the web map, because technically this web map is public and it's not our data to distribute. And they haven't been finalized, so we don't want to go down that path. But we do have them in the tool just for reference purposes. So Ryan, we could pull them up.
Because one thing
Lindsay, this is Brad. I stopped in the office of legislative council staff and asked them to give me maps showing the legislative districts boundaries, particularly within Williston, around Williston, in a higher detail. They sent me those digitally. I can send them to you. I just got them today, but I can send them to you. You can see if they'd be helpful or not. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, because we have the boundaries. We just didn't want to put them out on the map that's technically public, because then it would be like we were distributing someone else's data. So if you're able to provide those to us and we're able to put them on our public map, we're not necessarily, it's what has been what the board has been using for reference. Otherwise, we're just using them internally as we pull them off of the other maps. So whatever you and the legislative council are comfortable with.
What are the colors of the lines? I see you turned it on, but I can't see it.
Yeah, they're kind of a similar green, but essentially it follows this road down and then comes around.
So yeah, Ryan, if you want to
District 2?
zoom, so legislative district 2 is all of Williams County to the northern part, so around the Horn, I guess you could say, and then the green part that looks like a dinosaur is the new District 23, and then the purple shape in the middle of the center is what would be District 1.
So, Lindsay, the easiest way to think about it is that District 2 is everything outside the boundaries of the city limits of Williston and outside of the bypass boundary west and north of the new bypass, and south all the way to the Montana line and the Missouri River of Highway 2 at the 4-mile corner and over. So District 2 is basically everything that's not in the city of Williston or south of Highway 2 from the 4-mile corner of the Montana border.
And then plus still parts of Divide and Montreal, right?
Right, yeah, I was just focusing on Williams County since that's what we're dealing with.
Legislative District 1, because of the density of population, is this purple area here. So can we put our current commissioner districts on there too?
Yeah, but so remember that's the proposed proposed legislative districts with the current county commission.
I think that even though the Legislative Assembly hasn't approved the final redistricting, we've seen no objections to the northwest boundaries as we drew them for District 1, 2, 23, and District 4, and even the south of the river. So from that perspective, I don't know what all the laws tell you can or cannot do, but if you want to just, for comparison purposes, use those maps with a caveat that we're only using them for comparison purposes for committee use. I don't know how you do all that, but we did a lot of work in the redistricting at the state level with maps that we called them concepts instead of plans, because that's really all they are. So, Lindsay, I think from my perspective, you have you have more for your aim to do, probably more than we're doing right now in terms of comparing one map to another, but I'll defer to your attorney for that.
Okay.
Thanks, Brad.
Can we see our options with the legislative lines too? So can we put option G up with these legislative lines? Okay. I see.
Yep, so the northern part, so again, even with District 5 coming down to Highway 85, that aligns with the northern border of District 23. There's a little bit of, because we're following township lines, but District 23 follows Highway 85, there's a little doohickey on the west side of District 3. But I don't think anyone, Ryan, can you zoom in and see if people live there? Nope, down and then left. Yep, see it's a 0. Yeah, I think it's 0 and then it actually cuts a census block. But I don't think, Ryan, can you click on the census block or zoom in the census block that's cut by the highway? Yep, they're all 0s. So that's why, so that was kind of okay. So that way we can still stay with the township boundaries, but no one lives there today. Yeah, because I think it's all industrial on that side.
Okay, then we're gonna have to realign. Now, what's the law say about we cannot have precincts split by 2 legislative districts, correct? So we cannot have one precinct that has 2 legislative districts in it.
Correct.
Okay, Plan G,
But you can have multiple precincts in each district, though.
And that's what kind of makes it nice that, I mean, the hard part about the middle of Williston, again, is where the population happened. The fact that we're drawing 5 districts with 8,000 people each, as opposed to 3 districts with 16,000 people each. But with following the section lines, it should at least still give you nice, clean squares-ish, no matter what.
And this is maybe a good opportunity to clean up some precincts because you have some messy ones.
yes, but I want to go back to Plan G with the legislative stuff and see if I'm looking at this wrong. Because to me, it looks like legislative District 1 is part in Commissioner District 2 and 4 and 3. Or am I looking at it wrong?
Ryan, can you zoom into the green, brown, and orange area and then just pull it maybe above the monitor line? Okay. Yep. So yes, this would have 3 commission districts within legislative District 1. But they're following roads and or mostly section lines.
Just parts of 3 though, right? Not total, 3 total districts.
Right, correct. Just parts of 2, 3, and 4. Yes, yeah. You can have multiple commission districts in a legislative district. You just can't have, it's the precinct part of it. So you would have to create different precincts.
We would have to create 50, precinct 59 we'd have to create 1, 2, 3 new precincts then.
And you would be creating them for thousands of people. So it's not like these are areas where you only have 10, 15 people living in that you'd have to make ballots for. This is the densest part of the city, essentially.
Okay,
This is all the data you needed to fix some of these precincts that have had people on opposite sides of town going out to Ernie French and, you know, those, I forget which precincts they are, but anyway, this will be a good,
48 and 43.
there you go.
So I don't want to throw a wrench into things because I'm not there to help you guys with the maps, and I apologize for that. But when we worked on the state redistricting committee and we set up the District 1 and District 2 and District 23, each one of those districts needed to be about 16,500 people for optimum population number. And I think they're all about close to 16,000, somewhere around there. Because we had over 48,000 people to deal with. So I guess my idea was, because District 1 in the legislative districts we've set up by the state now has about 16,000 people, and the county commission districts needed each about 8,100 people. I literally thought we could split District 1 into 2 county commission districts, District 23 into 2 county commission districts, and the remainder of Williams County into the 5th commission district, and they should all have about 8,000 population. But that's probably too simple, and there's probably a lot of wrenches when you do that. But just by doing the math, I thought it fit pretty well to do it that way. And I didn't know that when we were on the state redistricting committee, that we needed 8,000 per district. Lindsay told me that after we got everything done at Bismarck. So, but is there a reason why? Is there a reason why it can't happen that way? Lindsay, you and I have talked about this, and I don't remember the reasons why it couldn't happen that way.
So we did make him, or Brad, do you want to show them? So Brad and I had talked about this, and there was one map that Raphael and I came up with that it was feasible. So the numbers worked out. Brad, is it okay if we show that map?
Yeah, go ahead. I mean,
Okay.
but before you get there, my thought process was, I thought it would be easier for people to know that let's say they're in the east half of legislative district 1, they vote for this county commission candidate. If they're in the west half of legislative district 1, they vote for this candidate. And you're not crossing the boundaries of the legislative lines at all.
Right.
But if you can cross the boundaries of legislative lines, then that's not a big deal, except for precincts, then that's a moot point. But I just thought it was simpler.
Because what happens, again, it's with the central part of Williston and where the population happened, how the census blocks are that we use as guidance, and the fact that for counties redistricting, the first thing that Century Code says is to use township lines, and kind of based on what we've had before and what would be the ultimate goal. So yeah, mathematically it would is pretty beautiful, but geographically it creates it's a really large district for District 5 because it's pulling that whole area, but that population does work out actually with, I don't remember what the exact numbers were, but that did. But once we got to the central part, you still kind of had to get into unique shapes to try to have the population in the right spots. And I don't remember off the top of my head if the one map we came up with split the airport or not, but once we tried to come up with alternative options, just sticking to legislative districts, really running into that airport area and the really dense census blocks around it. There's like 900 people to the north, 900 people to the south, and then groups of 500 on each side. There wasn't an easy way that could split it and still meet the population threshold.
So one of the things we did at the state, once we got into the cities and started drawing boundaries in the cities, we didn't care to respect township lines at all within the cities. That didn't matter at all. What we were trying to do was use major boundaries like the edge of a park or a major roadway, usually the corridors or something like that. So if preservation of township lines even within the city is important, we didn't do that at the state level.
Right, it's more the difference would be in the northern part on north side of Williston where 85B cuts through the different townships. But that's why G was kind of a compromise between the two, following township boundaries as much as possible, getting the population numbers, and then also following that 85B for the northern part of Legislative District 23.
Yeah, everything south of the bypass, or the new bypass, is not in the city, is it?
Not everything.
No, so I mean, you couldn't just follow that line and say the rest of it's in the city, so.
But again, also, you don't have to make a decision today. And we can keep kind of going through the maps, and if there's different configurations within the city, we have a little bit of time to be able to do that as well.
Yeah, I'm all for keeping all the maps in here for the time being, because I don't know that it helps us to eliminate any at this point. That's just my opinion.
At some point, though, that we're going to want to try and whittle it down to, so that we know, do we really want to go towards the Trenton area, or do we want to go what? I mean, I think one of the questions that we really could ask today to see what people think is, do we want to go take District 2 down to the Trenton area?
The Trenton area is going to develop dramatically. And when I say dramatically, it's going to be gigantic. And so,
Maybe not for residential.
100% for residential.
Oh, yeah, when that
there's
plant
gonna
comes
be-
in.
There's going to be people that are going to want to live close. I would assume, I mean, you're right, Roger. I think mostly industrial, but I think it is. But I think there's a lot of people that don't want to live close to where they work.
Is that District 2 to go? The growth. Oh, yes, I am. Right there. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm new at this up thing here. Yeah, but yeah, so yeah,
I'm not advocating one way or the other. I'm just saying that we have to accommodate for that. I think there's going to be some tremendous growth, as it's been described to us, like nothing we've ever seen. So that's something that we have to.
And we'll have to either look at the growth either in District 1, Commission District 1, or Commissioner District 2, and make accommodations wherever we feel for that future growth down there.
So remember, our plus minus number is 819, and option B has District 1 at 51 over, and District 2 at 481 under. And so option B is the one that goes into Judson as opposed to down into Trenton. So that would get any development that might happen on like the western part of town, both north and south of Highway 2. But really any of the Trenton and Marley Crossing area, that would be left into District 1. And for what it's worth, Trenton, as an area, is within Trenton Township, but Marley Crossing is technically in the southeast corner of Hardscrabble. And so depending on where any residential development might happen, those would actually still be in two different districts, even if District 2 came down to Trenton.
Fair enough, and I agree. I think there's the AIC, part of the AIC development. They want to actually do apartment buildings and housing units on the west side of the lake. And I mean, obviously they've got some things. They got some hurdles to climb there. Obviously, with water being the number one thing, but that has been one thing that has been discussed.
South of the railroad?
Yeah. South of the railroad and on the west end of the lake.
And so the two options with option A and option A2 with District 2 extending into Trenton actually still leaves District 1 pretty far under with both of those to absorb development that might happen around that area, and both options for District 2 pretty under as well. So options A and A2 with extending into Trenton does set both District 1 and District 2 up for growth.
And the Water Board is in the process of approving a plan that is for commercial, residential, south of the railroad tracks right now.
In south
Trenton.
of Marley Crossing?
No, in Trenton.
Oh, in Trenton, okay.
Yeah. And it's a pretty big development.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, how much can District 1 lose, and still have enough population? Or does it have to go into the city more than to get enough for, to be a district? If you start taking that area all the way to Trenton out of it, I don't know the numbers, but do you know offhand or?
Yep, so everything is still within that 10% threshold. So it would still be, all of the options presented are within the plus minus 10%. So like when I say, so option A2, District 1 is 801 people under the target deviation. So the target deviation is 819, so it's within that plus minus 10%. But it would be significantly under proportionally to other ones.
There wouldn't be much point in doing this unless we followed this road all the way to the Montana line, though, would there? I mean, otherwise, we're going to be just splitting it anyway.
Kind of, yes. Well, and guessing where exactly people think that they're going to be putting it, and anticipating that A, it happens, B, it gets built, and then C, people live there.
Yeah, but I think those things are to be done 10 years from now when there's actually people there. I mean, we shouldn't try to project where everybody's going to be just because we think that's what's going to happen.
So overall, in terms of a strategy for redistricting, looking at anticipated growth areas is a valid strategy for choosing it. But again, all of these fall within that plus minus 10%. So it's just different variations of how far you could go.
And
So it just depends.
just expounding on what you're saying, Roger, I think when you factor the most likely areas of growth, like the previous airport, slough and field development, clearly is going to get developed. I mean, that's over the course of the next 10 years, that's definitely going to gain population. It would be speculative to say that there's going to be a tremendous amount of housing down in Trenton, but I would guess that there'll be some development down there. There'll be a lot of people that commute, from Fairview, Sydney, Watford, Alexander, and of course Williston, to get to the developments that are potentially going to happen down there.
And broadly, I don't think any of the proposed options have District 1 near the top end. I think everything has been
In
pretty...
population, you mean?
Yeah.
Just because there should be a tremendous amount of growth to the west as well, opportunity for growth.
Well, and kind of also then too where, just again, where the population growth happened, and geographically where the district boundaries had to be drawn to be able to pull enough people to make it more proportional in the other
Well,
districts.
how many people are there south of Highway 85 or Highway 2 in District 1 now? I mean, we should be able to have that number.
Yes, we should, Ryan. You maybe just start a new plan and then make it a fake district.
Well, and I was also thinking if you get rid of Judson, and what happens if you go over to Hardscrabble and Buford and enclose that in District 2? Is that too much?
It might be.
And then that portion of Williston, outside the city of Williston there, that's green, and give all that to District 1 on option A2 I'm talking about, I'm sorry. And then just have them in that portion of the southern part of Williston.
Okay, well, hold on, wait. Let's answer Roger's question first, and let's get the count underneath Highway 2. Yeah, yeah. We have to do a little bit of magic and then some drawing of things.
Like right to there?
I'd pull it all the way south. So yeah, everything
Well,
south
yeah,
of
but-
Highway 2 and then.
But just to start.
Oh, because you gotta zoom in because otherwise it's doing the block group, which ruins everything.
So, just a question for Brad, is there any part of the city of Williston that is not in District 1 or 23?
No, none of the city of Williston is in District 2 at all. All the city of Williston is either in District 1 or District 23.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Oh, because you have unassigned. One more. Okay, so about 1,300 people live south of Highway 2 and west of Highway 85. That's it. So that's what you, yeah, and you need plus minus 10% of 8,190.
So in Plan G, how many people are in District 2? Or District 1, I mean,
In option
County District 1.
In option G, District 1 has 8,674 people, which is about 484 over the target number, but still within the plus 10%.
And that's District 1?
That's District 1.
So if you subtract the 1,300, is it still within the, on the negative side, within the limits?
Actually, it would be, because 819 plus 484 is 1,303, and there was 1,287. So you would be under by a hairish. But what are you trying to do?
I'm thinking that we could develop a plan here on somehow going around option G as one plan and something like what Brad was talking about as being another plan, and see if there's a possibility to put those two together and then choose from one way or the other after we get some feedback from the people all over the county.
Well, then are you talking about then a third plan too with the trying to get District 2 all the way under Highway 2?
I think that's in the one of those two plans, but
Well, here, Ryan, why don't you go ahead and open Brad's option? A letter wasn't assigned because this wasn't pre-planned. It's the first one. There we go.
it might take some tweaking and some study here before we could, just put it together, but.
So this is what this is our initial attempt at getting only 2 districts per District 23, District 1, and then District 2. So you'll see District 5 encompasses all of Williams County around the center part. And then and actually, because this completely reorganizes our commission districts, the numbers really actually don't matter. The numbers at this point don't matter.
Do we know with this one whether all the commissioners would continue to live in their districts then, or?
They would not.
Oh.
So I think only Barry would still live in his district. Maybe Corey.
So that means they all have to run for election again then.
I think this plan would end up meaning all districts would have to run next year.
Because of why? Or why?
They don't live in their districts.
Yeah, and there's like two parts of it. There's if no one lives in so next year, right? So District 1, 3, and 5 are up for election next year. So this scenario would say, for example, the District 2 commissioner no longer lives in their district, but District 1 is open for election. But the District 1 commissioner no longer lives in his district, so he can't run for re-election. But the District 2 commissioner could run for District 1. Karen actually wrote out some really nice scenarios because we fell down a rabbit hole on this. So if there's some election concern, we can send that out instead of.
And then Commissioner District 4 would be Commissioner District 2.
Well, again, this completely reorganizes the districts, so the numbers actually, you could pick whatever numbers you probably wanted. Because it doesn't
What I'm
matter.
saying is the commissioner for District 4 actually would live in District 2.
Yep, and that's a holdover commissioner scenario.
And then
I think Brad's trying to talk.
none of our commissioners live in District 4.
And Lindsay, I apologize for making it that screwy because I don't even know where all the commissioners live, so I didn't even look at that. Not that it isn't important, but I have no idea where the commissioners live. I'd ask Steve Kemp even where he lives. So if you had that on a map someplace that showed me, I may have been more respectful of that than I was in asking to even look at that. But I know at the state level, incumbents and where they lived was not a big consideration for our committee, but there were a few areas where they tried to maintain that. I agree.
Oh, it's good to look at all options, and that's fair. I appreciate that, Senator Becknell. Thank you.
Yeah, so regardless of the plan that's decided, if there will be maybe some election implications that we could look at that time once you get closer to whatever you're selecting. But there is a difference between if a commissioner that is not up for re-election next year no longer lives in their district. I mean, obviously, if a commissioner next year who's up for re-election but no longer lives in their district, then they wouldn't be able to run again. But with Commissioner Montgomery and Commissioner Kemp, with 2 and 4 not being up for re-election next year, if you guys are moved, that will have some implications. And there's a couple different scenarios on that way.
District 1, current District 1 in Williams County would lose all this northern part of the city of Wilson, though, too.
Correct.
So there'd be more people to lose besides those 1,300. So, I mean, I don't know how that would all work out. They'd have to get back the townships up there that you have, that you've moved into District 5.
Well, and that's how we got into because District 23 has a really narrow neck, let's say, that's why District 1 has to kind of come up and has that hook. And actually, the east side of District 2 could pick up that whole eastern part of District 1. There's not that many people that live there. So for compactness, District 2 could actually extend further east. But that's why District 1 has to go up vertically to be able to get the population it needs. And so in this scenario, there's actually 8,387 people. So there's so it's 197 people over the
In option G.
number. Nope, in this option right here, with having the only District 1 and 2 within the new District 23. So having that entire territory underneath Highway 2 into the west of 85. And then it has to extend vertically and it has to extend north and east to be able to get the population that it needs.
What district is not, in this proposal, what number is the district that goes northwestern part of the county?
District 5 would encompass almost the entire county. So,
Okay. So
Ryan,
where
if
did
you want to
we just come up with that now here today? All
No,
this?
this is what Brad had asked us to look at based on the legislative districts.
Okay.
Yep. So that's why this didn't have a letter, because this wasn't planned. But yeah, so this is because the new District 2 proposed legislative district encompasses all of Williams County outside of that southern portion. So for District 5, and so District 5 would have to actually be that entire area to have enough population to meet our threshold. And then it keeps it flush with the legislative lines. So this is kind of back to Brad's comment earlier about the fact that mathematically, the legislative districts needed about 16,000 people, and our commission districts needed about 8,000 people, and there were 3 legislative districts. So 2 of them could just be split in half with 8,000 people each, and the 3rd district, being District 2, could be the entire 5th district. But when it comes down to geography and current districts and township boundaries, it's not as pretty as maybe we all hoped.
I don't think that the rural areas of the county would really be in favor of that plan, but at least that's my opinion. It would give them chances of really only having one commissioner ever that would be living outside the city of Williston almost. So.
Yeah.
Roger, I don't disagree with you, but on the other side of it, you know, in the one person, one vote principle, Williston's about 75% of the county population. So having 5 districts just touch the city, so we could literally have 5 rural district commissioners and none from the city, versus having at least 2 or 3 districts totally within the city to represent that significant population. I think that needs to be looked at too. So I think there's a place in between where I'm talking and you're talking, and I would agree that the rural county people probably don't like the idea that Williston dominates so much population already. So.
Right, and that's where we get back to 71% of Williams County is Williston, and that translates to 3.6 commission districts.
Okay, in an effort to respect everybody's time, it's nearing 7 o'clock. Is there, we can keep going. I just want to, just this is a checking question. We can keep going, or we can move on to item number 3, the general reorganization of district discussion. Is that where we're at right now?
That's where we've
That's
landed.
definitely where we're at right now. So I'm just asking for a consensus from the group. Do we want to keep going, or do we want to save something for the next meeting?
I think what I'll do is go upstairs and have Lindsay come with me and then give my suggestion on doing some combinations and extending the green area along Highway 85, Highway 2 South.
Okay, but do you guys want to do that during normal work hours?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Not right now. I'm like, wow, you're going to take Lindsay upstairs?
No,
and
not
you guys
right
have to-
now.
Geez, by midnight you should be done. Okay. Senator Beckett, do you have any thoughts on keeping going or adjourning?
Well, I think, I've just been driving, so for me, it's been a pretty easy thing to just finish. I could have seen some of the maps, but that's my fault, not yours. I think if we want to take the break now, it's been an hour and a half, and then I'll try to get with Lindsay and see if I can do some fine tuning with her too, and maybe have another map to present the next time as well. But I need to get some time with her and see the maps you guys saw tonight if I can. So I'm pretty non-productive at this point, spending more time doing what you're doing there. So
Okay.
Well, one thing I want to reiterate, by state law, what I'm doing, yeah. I'm pushing. There, yeah. I just, I just want to iterate by state law, we're required to try and follow state lines, make it regular and compact, and then do the population part of it, really. So it's like, we're really, guided by those three sort of categories of things, really. So we need to, whatever we come up with, should try and follow those three categories as much as possible, really, in my opinion.
You said regular lines, compact, and population?
Township lines, regular and compact, and then the population. But otherwise, I'd move we adjourn.
But just so one comment on scheduling. So last meeting you agreed for your regular schedule to be every other Wednesday.
I'm sorry, I made a motion to adjourn.
You just said you thought about it.
No, I said I made a motion to adjourn, so I'm waiting for a second. Then we can have a discussion.
She did make a motion. To be, in an adjournment, do we need, isn't it just a motion?
You need a motion and a second, but I will second it. You don't need to vote on it.
Yeah, today technically, I mean, if you want to be super formal, you need the motion, but it's like, other than that, you could just say, we're done.
Yeah. We've got a motion and a second. We'll now discuss. Go ahead, Lindsay.
Okay, great, thanks. Anywho, so scheduling wise, your next meeting is October 27th, and then last meeting you set your regular schedule as every other Wednesday until the end of the year, just to be safe. But that really only leaves you with one meeting in November, which is Wednesday, November the 10th. And so just keeping in mind the publishing rules for your setting your public hearing and as well as having your public hearing and Thanksgiving, November might be kind of an odd month. So just kind of having in your minds, I think if by the 27th, you could pick your alternative plans for the public hearing, you would be able to notice that in enough time to have a public hearing during your meeting of November 10th or setting a separate time. You could also set a separate day for your public hearing and have like a special meeting right after to discuss. But depending on what you want to try to accomplish and how soon, just with that one regularly scheduled meeting in November, you might need to just kind of think about what you want to do day-wise. But it has to be 10 days prior to the hearing. It has to be published in the paper. So you also have to consider the time it takes to make the public notice, send it to the Herald, get it proofed, and have it printed. And then that hearing has to be at least 30 days before the end of the year. So,
Plus the fact that the Herald only publishes 3 times a week, is it? Yeah.
yes. So yeah, the decreased publishing also kind of puts a crunch in it sometimes.
Okay,
So Lindsay, could we have the meeting on the 10th of November? I'll be in Bismarck for special session that whole week from the 8th to the 12th. At least that's what they're tentatively telling us. But if it's at a time after 5 o'clock, I can be on Zoom with that because I'll still be in Bismarck. But then could we take public input on the 10th and meet again then on the 17th for the committee to make a final decision, or do we have to do it all on the 10th?
Nope, you can split it up. And so that's why you don't even necessarily have to have the public hearing on the 10th. You could pick a different day that following week and then call like a special meeting afterwards to be able to have your discussion and make your decision. Or you could do your public hearing the 10th and then call your special meeting to meet the 17th to make the final decision. But you also have to think, so the regular schedule is set for 5:30. And so you'd have to also think about if you wanted a public hearing in the evening at a different time, depending. And I know that Wednesday nights sometimes are church nights in town, so.
Okay, so we've got one more meeting in October, 27th, correct? Okay, so
just
we've
things
got an
to think
additional
about
map that's
with-
going to be coming to the table, right? Okay, so if we have any additional maps that are going to come to, considering we've got additional maps coming to the table, at least one, maybe more, we start eliminating on the 27th, and we narrow it down. And I think we just hammer it out on the 27th. That becomes a critical date. And then we notice and move on. Okay? Outstanding. Are we good? Okay, we're adjourned.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
See you, Brad.